have been noticing that like a lot of people recently like who are getting out of romance are, you know, reading fantasy, or a lot of people who are getting out of like YA are trying to get into adult fantasy. So I thought this video would just be really helpful because I think it's really important to like slowly will your way into a genre. Obviously you don't have to, that's just personally how I think. Like I think just like 1 or 2 fantasies and then you kind of get the gist of adult fantasies and then you're good. But obviously you don't have to do that. Like you can just skip right into whatever book you wanted to read. Like you don't have to follow my recommendations. But this is just for people who are also the same, who also think that like you should work your way up to a genre. So yeah, I have some good recommendations, and y'all know I always have a bunch of recommendations for y'all. So you know, sit tight, I got you. And we're just gonna jump into the books. So the first books I have are actually books that I don't own. Well, one is a book I don't own and another one is a book I don't know where it is. So the first book is Middle Game. I recommended this book in a fall recommendations. I still don't know where the book is. I still don't know. It's actually one of my favorite all-time books, ironically, and the second book is coming out next year. I'm so excited. And it also has like little novellas called I almost said Over the Garden Wall. I'm always thinking of Over the Garden Wall. Middle Game is about these twins named Roger and Dodger. Do not let the twin names deter you. Roger is a guy, Dodger's a girl, and they both have something called a quantum entanglement. And this is something that like they can talk to each other through their minds, so you end up growing up with them. So you find them when they discover that they have this quantum entanglement to, you know, adulthood. And it has to do with alchemy, which since my fall recommendations video I do know what alchemy is. Thank you to everyone who described it to me. You're probably like, girl, how did you read this book and you didn't even understand what alchemy is? Pretty much with fantasy I learned that to not let my confusion deter me from enjoying a book. So I learned that like sometimes if you're confused it's the point, but I've also just got so used to being confused that I just don't let it bother me. And it's not confusing at all, I just didn't know what alchemy was and now I know what it is. I have not read this book in almost a year and I still can't remember quantum entanglement is the specific word of what they're called. So that's how you know that I love this series with like, well, this book with all my heart. And I love Roger and Dodger, and I love that they always find their way to each other. And what the quantum entanglement does, they can like kind of have this connection with each other. And Roger is really good at like words and spelling, and Dodger's really good at math tests, and they basically like they can talk to each other through their minds. And I just love how they discover that they're siblings, and like, because at first they think they're imaginary friends. And I don't want to give too much away in the book. I want there to be like a lot of surprise, so I'll leave it at that. And then the next book I want to recommend is the Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I do have another V. Schwab book to recommend, and I'm not the biggest V. Schwab fan. I keep trying to give her a try, but something just doesn't work well for me with her writing, and I don't know what it is. Like I want to like her writing a lot, but don't let me not liking it deter you, because I am a pretty critical reader and a lot of people love this book. So I still wanted to recommend it just in case, you know, you watch this video and you're looking for something and then you find, you know, I recommend you Addie LaRue and then it ends up being like your all-time favorite book. Like, you know, I don't want to let me not enjoying a book deter somebody else from finding a book that they'll love. So I usually will recommend books that I even didn't enjoy a lot of times in my recommendations, because just because I like something doesn't mean you won't. So The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue is about this girl who wishes that she can live forever, and the devil essentially does grant her that wish, but along with that wish everyone she meets will forget her. So you are following her life and some of like the important parts of her life. I thought that the writing was well, and I actually did find the book really intriguing. I think for me, what made me not like the book was just that it was mismarketed. Like it was marketed as a love story between the devil and the main character, and I just didn't really enjoy the romance, and that there was no romance between the devil and the main character. And there was romance in the book, I just personally didn't enjoy it. So that's why the book didn't work for me. But a lot of people do like the romance that is in the book. I just think that if it wasn't marketed as the romance between the devil and Addie LaRue, I probably would have liked it a lot more. But if you are interested in hearing my rant review, I do have one if you want to know more of my like opinions. So the next book I want to recommend is A Darker Shade of Magic. You know, like I said, V Schwab, I didn't really love this one, but this one is about 4 Londons, and some of them, they're very different. Like, one of the Londons doesn't have any magic, one has a little bit of magic, one London doesn't exist, and then one London does have magic. And the main character can go through all of these Londons, which is something that's like not really possible. And he's always like, you know, he ends up coming across like Lila Bards, and a lot of people really do love this book. I thought it was interesting, but I didn't like Lila Bard as a character, and after reading so many V. Schwab books, I find that she always makes her main female characters not like other girls. So after reading a lot of V. Schwab books, it just got annoying. But I think if you can get beside, like if you can push that aside, there's some really good characters in this book. I love these covers. Like, V. Schwab gets the best covers, I swear. The next book we have on this list is also another one of my all-time favorites, and that is Ninth House. I always recommend Ninth House. This is good because this is contemporary fantasy, so I think that, personally, I think that you should start with this book, and I may be saying that because it's my favorite. I will warn you, it's supposed to be like a 5-book series. This book came out like 2-3 years ago, and we're still on book 1. So Leigh Bardugo is taking her good sweet time writing the second book and coming out with the second book, but I am manifesting that we get the book late 2022 at the most, early 2023. And you know, I'm gonna be a rotten corpse by the time the series is finished, but I still recommend it because it is that good. It is that good. Okay, so it's a set, and I think it's set in like Harvard. It sounded like a college, like it was set in Yale. So it's set in Yale, and it's about Alex who can see ghosts, and it has a secret society, and basically she is protecting this secret society. She gets teamed up with Daniel Arlington, Darlington for short. My favorite character. I just love Darlington so much, and it's so good. It does have a lot of trigger warnings, so I'm going to leave a link in the description box to this website. It'll be the specific book triggers, but I'm going to link you to the website that tells you like what book triggers are in this book, just because there's literally so many, and I would be sitting here all day listening to you. But yeah, there's a lot of triggers in this book, but I thought a lot of the triggers were mentioned, like a lot of them weren't shown. There were some shown, but a lot of them were just like mentioned. And I love this book. I love the characters. I'm not a character person, but this book also has plot. I need plot and characters, and I definitely got that. Highly recommend. This is the UK cover, which I got off Amazon UK, and you can also get it off Book Depository. Okay, so the next book I have to recommend is a book that I never thought that, like, a person I would never thought I would be recommending, and that is Stephen King, The Gunslinger. This is Stephen King's take on fantasy. He also has a book called The Eye of the Dragon, which is a middle grade fantasy, but I'm recommending this one because I haven't read The Eye of the Dragon yet. This one, for me, I personally didn't like. I'm not really into the series yet. The first book is really boring, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, but it's only 200 pages. Like, it's really quick. Like, you can read this book and the second book in like one day. It's really short for a Stephen King, but it's really short period, especially the second book. So you can probably read them both in like one day, maybe 1 or 2 days, depending on like how fast of a reader you are, but it won't take that long to read it. So this one is about this guy who is a gunslinger, and he comes across this guy. It's called the Man in the Black, and he basically is looking for the Man in the Black because he's essentially looking for the Dark Tower, which is like the name of the series. But the Man in the Black seems to have all the answers to his questions, so he's looking for the Man in the Black. And this one, like I said, it's kind of boring. The second book is where it picks up, but if you are a black person or a person who's sensitive to slurs, I definitely am going to warn you. I'm not going to do you dirty and lead you into that book, and you know, that book definitely made me uncomfortable. There's a lot of slurs, a lot of the N-word using, which Stephen King tends to do. So I am warning you, but I do think this is a good series, and I definitely think this is a good series if you are a character-driven person. In the second book, I was introduced to one of my favorite characters, but I'm not a character-driven person, so it's really hard for me to get into a book if it doesn't have a plot. So it's really hard for me to get into the series. So I am just taking my good sweet time, but it is very intriguing. The world is interesting. The, like, I don't want to say the magic system, but like kind of it's because it's not really magic, but like in the second book, the gunslinger is inside another character's body, like telling him what to do and like seeing what he sees, and it's just so cool. So I really think things like that are interesting, but it's just it's a little character driven. So The next book I want to talk about is The Bone Maker. This one is actually a standalone, so I think that this one is actually perfect because you don't have to wait for any sequels. It's literally just this. And this one is about a girl, and she has like these special abilities to be a bone maker. And a few years after, she basically has like this war with the villain of the story. Her and her found, it's like a found family. Her and her found family kind of dispars, and she has a husband, and he basically is dead, and she is using like dead bones of dead like animals and things like that. So it does have like, you know, dead animals, but they're already dead, so she's not killing them, and it helps him stay alive. So like literally when it's described, I am not that good at picturing things, so sometimes I kind of have to picture my own thing. Basically what I think of it is this man is literally laying there like basically nothing, like deflated, like he looks deflated, and then she uses the bones and he's alive again, but he's only alive for a few hours. So she sets on this mission to go back to find her found family friend group and try to get them to forgive her so that she can get her husband back to life for good. So I think this book is really good because it deals with like grief, and it deals with friendship, and it has a found family group, which I love in a fantasy book, period. The next book is another all-time favorite. This video is literally just me trying to convince people to read my all-time favorite books. The next book is an all-time favorite, and it is The Poppy War. I love this book so much. Naza is my favorite character, the love of my life. My Twitter name is Love Naza. I got it from The Poppy War. If I still have Twitter, I deactivate Twitter for mental health like every other week, so but whatever. This book is about Rin, who is basically poor. She doesn't have a family. She lives with her aunt and her uncle, and they don't like her. They don't treat her well, and the people on her, like the people in her community or anyone really, doesn't treat her well because she's dark skinned, and they don't treat her well, and they treat her like she's dumb and all this stuff. So she's studying to be put into this military school, and then she actually ends up getting in. So you basically follow her life a little bit, like the journey in the military school. And I really like this one because of the school aspect. I learned that I really love school aspects, whether it be a magical school, a regular school, like whatever it is, I love that aspect. So I really enjoyed this book. Also, Rin is such a like strong character. Not to mention this book is easy to follow, although I will warn you, this book has a lot of triggers, so I'll leave the triggers for this one down below as well. The next one is an all-time favorite of mine, Daily Education. This one also has a school setting, so as you can see, I like a lot of school settings: magical schools, dark academia, fantasies, friend groups, all of that stuff. So this one is about the main character. She is half Indian, half English, and she is set to go to the school. And in this school you get no off days, there are no teachers, and there are monsters lurking the hall. So you literally have to have a friend group in order to survive. So the main character is getting fed up because, the character's name is Elle, by the way. Elle is getting fed up because Orion is always saving her life. She's like, I don't need you to save my life, like whatever. Very grumpy, very much, you know. And so they end up actually forming a friendship because he saves her like 13 times. So she actually is like, you know what, since you want to keep saving me, I'm gonna latch onto this. So she ends up like, people think they're dating, and she doesn't deny it, so that also gets her friends, so she doesn't have to shower. She doesn't have to not shower, because in this world, like, there are monsters everywhere. So if you shower by yourself, they can come get you. Also, somebody can push you out of your room and you can just fall into like the void. So it's just a lot easier to have friends. And so she ends up, you know, using these people, and she actually does form a good friendship, and you see that in book 2, which I have read and gave 5 stars. These are the UK editions, just because I don't like the gold outline on the books. Also, these are taller. The next book I have isn't necessarily like a favorite of mine, but I do think it's a really good book, especially because it's confused for YA a lot, even though it is definitely adult. It is like Orbit is the publishing company, which Orbit mostly makes adult sci-fi and fantasy, so it's definitely adult. And this book is For the Wolf. So this one is, the first daughter is for the throne and the second daughter is for the wolf. So the main character is the second daughter, so she is going to the wolf, and there is a wolf in the woods, and basically she gets sent to him to live with him, and like a romance ensues, and he's like a grumpy, like, you know, character. I really wanted to like this a lot, but I just felt like it was kind of boring. Once again, I think that if you are into character driven things or even atmospheric things, you will really eat this book up. I don't really understand why this book was written first, because this one is called For the Wolf, and then the second one is called For the Throne, are published backwards than what is written, basically, because that's what it says on the back. The first daughter is For the Wolf, the second daughter is For the Throne. So why, I don't understand why For the Throne wasn't first and For the Wolf wasn't second. That's neither here nor there. I thought that the romance in this book was kind of insta-lovey. Like, I really wanted to love the romance, especially because the wolf was like grumpy monster boyfriend, really atmospheric, but I just got really bored. And also there were stories in here that were told, like, it was like the sister's perspective, which is also kind of why I don't get why she's getting a book. But that's just from someone who hates unnecessary sequels and series. But don't let me deter you, okay? Don't let me deter you. It is a Little Red Riding Hood retelling, which is one of my favorite fairy tales of all time. Like, it is fun. It definitely is fun. It's definitely atmospheric. It just, I was like a little lost in the sauce here, you know what I'm saying. The next book I have is Son of the Storm, and this one is about this, basically it is, imagine you're being told something is wrong your entire life, and then you are faced to confront that thing, and you realize that your people were telling you the wrong information the whole time. I think if I explained that a little bit better, it would sound so good. But that's essentially what happens. So the main character, he is told that these people called, I think, what they're called, like the light skins or something like that. I just remember because I was like, that's such a weird name. They're called like the bright skins or something like that. And they're basically told that they are evil, and you know, and they never really come near them. And the main character, he is really smart for his age. He's always doing stuff he shouldn't be doing. And there's this book that nobody's allowed to read, but he keeps like getting a hold of it and reading it, and it keeps getting him in trouble. And then one of the bright skins ends up coming into their community, and he ends up finding out like his people were wrong about these bright skins this entire time. So it basically follows that, and I think that this book was a really good read. It was really quick. I read it in like 6 hours, audiobook speed wise. The next book I want to recommend is a book that I highly recommend that you start with first, definitely for sure, and that is City of Brass, especially because this one gets confused for YA a lot. It's also another book that gets confused for YA, even though it is explicitly adult. So this one's about this main character who is a scammer. She's a liar and a scammer. She's a con, and she ends up coming across this djinn, and she releases Dara, who's telling her that her beliefs are wrong. So they essentially end up going on this journey, and you also follow another character. The POVs are Nari and Ali, but you also, Dara is also in the book. So it's 3 characters, but 2 characters get POVs. And then the last book I want to recommend kind of is Miss Martin. I am obsessed with these covers. Damn, I got another bookmark in here. And I've been looking for that one specifically too. Imagine the villain ends up winning. This basically is what that is. The villain ends up winning, and these people are basically set in like hiding, and they are like hiding their magic, and they're basically like kind of, I don't want to say living underground, but essentially like they're doing all these things underground. Main character Kelser he basically ends up recruiting these underworld elites, and he basically is set to perform a heist because they want to take down the evil man. I love these books. I read the entire trilogy, so that's how you know I really enjoyed it, because I'm not good at reading series, especially I read them like all back to back too. That's how you know. So I really like this, and then I really like Brandon Sanderson's writing. The romance in this book wasn't that good, which I don't read adult fantasy for romance at all, but I was just like, I just saw the potential in this romance, and I was like, dang, if only this romance was like slightly a bit better. It's still cute though, it's still cute, but I'm just like, ugh, you know? And I love Kelser. He's like one of my favorite characters. So yeah, So yeah, that's it for this video. If you want to leave your own recommendations, if you think I missed anything, let me know down below. If you like read these books and you want to come back and tell me how you feel about them, please let me know. Like, follow me on Instagram, DM me. I always respond to my DMs. Thank you for watching this video. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.